Yeah, no cameras in the courtroom today. The prosecution filing a legal brief today, and what it contains is beyond disturbing. Take a look at this. In that brief, prosecutors say Celeste Rivas Hernandez and Burke first met when she was just 11 years old, and they have explicit photos of the two. The brief also spelling out that Burke stabbed Celeste several times.
There are cases that stop you cold. Cases where you read the details once, then you read them again, because your brain refuses to accept that what you just read is real. This is one of those cases. And before this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why investigators, prosecutors, forensic experts, and an entire city were left absolutely shattered by what they found inside a tow yard in Los Angeles on a September morning in 2025. Her name was Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez. She was 14 years old. She loved to sing. She loved to dance. Every single Friday night, her family sat together for movie night, the kind of simple tradition that holds a family together, the kind of night that does not feel important until it is gone forever.
Burke is accused of killing Celeste, who disappeared last April. Her remains were found in September in plastic bags in the front truck of a Tesla registered to Burke. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani believes Burke's defense will most likely argue that Celeste accidentally died from an overdose and Burke panicked, cutting up and hiding her body.
Her parents had immigrated from El Salvador and built their lives in Lake Elsinore, California, a working-class city in Riverside County, about 80 miles southeast of Los Angeles. Not a famous city. Not a city anyone talks about. Just a place where families work hard and raise their children and try to build something good. And Celeste was their something good. She was bright and warm and full of life, the kind of girl who made the people around her feel her presence the moment she walked into a room. She told her parents she loved them. Right up until she could not anymore. And then one night, she got into a car. An Uber. Ordered for her by someone else. Headed to a house more than 80 miles away. And she never came home. What prosecutors say happened inside that house, inside that garage, in the weeks and months that followed, is the kind of story that does not feel like it belongs in the real world. But it does. Every detail is documented. Every piece of evidence has been processed, matched, and confirmed. And now, with the preliminary hearing scheduled and the case fully open, the full picture is finally coming into focus. Here is what makes this case different from almost anything that has come before it. The man prosecutors say is responsible was not hiding in the shadows. He was not unknown. He was not someone the world had never heard of. He was a 21-year-old music star with hundreds of millions of streams, a fortnight deal, a debut album days away from dropping, and a world tour already booked. His name is David Anthony Burke. The world knew him as D4VD.
Yeah, no cameras in the courtroom today. The prosecution filing a legal brief today, and what it contains is beyond disturbing. Take a look at this. In that brief, prosecutors say Celeste Rivas Hernandez and Burke first met when she was just 11 years old, and they have explicit photos of the two. The brief also spelling out that Burke stabbed Celeste several times and watched her bleed to death.
And the song that made him famous, the song that put his name on every playlist, every algorithm, every radio station, was called Romantic Homicide. Let that sit for just a moment. Romantic Homicide. Hundreds of millions of streams. And prosecutors say the man who recorded it allegedly took the life of a 14-year-old girl the night before his album was supposed to change his life forever. Hi viewers, here is a question and the answer is simpler than you think. Before all of this came out, had you ever heard D4VD's music? Yes or no, drop it in the comments right now. Because the answer to that question says everything about how far this story reached and how many people had no idea what was allegedly happening behind the music. Now, before anything else, before the evidence, before the prosecutors, before the forensic details that shook an entire investigative team, Celeste deserves to be seen as more than a name attached to a tragedy.
If you're looking at the 3 sets of charges, the mutilation of a corpse is the least serious. So if they can somehow fall on that and avoid either the sex crimes or the murder itself, that would be a huge win for the defense.
Because in cases like this, especially cases that generate this level of attention, the victim can disappear inside the horror of the allegations. And that cannot happen here. Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez was born on September the 7th, 2010. She grew up in Lake Elsinore with her family, her parents who loved her deeply, who built their entire world around giving her and their family a life worth living. She was a daughter. She was a girl with a future. She had plans and feelings and a voice she loved to use when she sang. She was not just a detail in a criminal case. She was a person. A real one. And every single thing that prosecutors say was done to her was done to a real child who had done nothing wrong. Her family released a statement after the arrest. They said this: Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night, and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much, and she always told us that she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste. She always told them she loved them. Think about that. And then think about this. When her remains were finally identified in September 2025, it was one day after what would have been her 15th birthday. One single day. She never made it. She was found in a tow yard, inside the front trunk of a Tesla Model X, sealed inside a body bag, surrounded by flies, in a state that the investigators who responded to that scene will likely never forget for the rest of their lives. That is where this story ends. But to understand how it got there, you have to go back to the beginning. You have to understand who David Burke was, what he had to lose, what prosecutors say he did to protect it, and how a 14-year-old girl from a small California city ended up at the center of one of the most extensively documented and deeply disturbing criminal cases Los Angeles has seen in years. Because this did not start in April 2025. Not even close. This started years earlier. With a Discord server. With an 11-year-old girl. And with a connection that law enforcement would later say they had every opportunity to stop, and did not. That part of this story is coming. And it is going to make everything that follows hit even harder. Stay with this. January 2022. A Discord server. An 11-year-old girl in Lake Elsinore, California, typing her name into a fan community built around a musician she admired. That was how it started. Not dramatically. Not with anything that looked alarming from the outside. Just a child joining an online space the way millions of children do every single day. Her username was Celeste. And according to investigators, other members of that server referred to her openly as David Burke's girlfriend. She was 11 years old. David Anthony Burke had grown up in Texas, started producing his own music as a teenager, and in 2022, one song changed everything. Romantic Homicide. It did not just perform well. It exploded. Hundreds of millions of streams. TikTok. Playlists. Radio. He got signed to Dark Room, Interscope Records. He performed at major festivals. He landed a song as the first ever official Fortnite theme, a game with hundreds of millions of registered players worldwide. Real money. Real momentum. And by early 2025, his debut album Withered was days away from dropping. A world tour already booked. North America. Europe. Everything a 21-year-old artist dreams about was right there in front of him. Hold that picture in your mind. Because what prosecutors say he did to protect it is the reason this case exists. Fast forward to November 2023. Celeste is 13. Burke is 18. Prosecutors say that is when the alleged relationship crossed into criminal territory. They say they have explicit photographs recovered from his personal devices, photographs of Celeste at 13 and 14 years old. That material is classified as child sexual abuse imagery under federal law. Investigators say it exists and corroborates everything. Throughout 2024, Celeste was embedded in his world in ways that are staggering to process. Weekends at his Hollywood Hills rental house. A trip to Las Vegas. London. Texas, where she reportedly met his actual family. She was traveling internationally with a rising music star while her parents back in Lake Elsinore had no idea who she was really with. People in his circle assumed she was close to his age. Nobody asked hard questions. Or if they did, nothing came of it. Then came February 2024. Celeste's family reported her missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. She was 13 and gone. Investigators traced her phone records and one number kept appearing. David Burks. They called him. He said he barely knew her. Said he only met her once. Said he had no idea she was a minor. Lap deputies then went to his West Hollywood home that same evening and told him directly, face to face, this girl is 13 years old and we are looking for her. He said again he barely knew her. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and showed those deputies a school yearbook photo of Celeste. A yearbook photo. Saved on his personal phone. Of a girl he claimed to barely know. The deputies noted it. They left. A few days later Celeste came home on her own. Her parents took her phone away and tried to cut off whatever connection had formed. They thought that was the end of it. It was not even close to the end. What Burke allegedly did next is the moment in this story where the picture of who he is comes into sharpest focus. He drove more than 80 miles from Los Angeles down to Lake Elsinore. He went to Celeste's junior high school.
Now also in the brief, prosecutors allege that surveillance video shows that Burke was the last person to drive the Tesla where Celeste's body was found. He is due back in court on May 12th for a procedural hearing, then again on May 26th for his preliminary hearing.
He found one of her classmates, another child, and he paid that student $1,000 in cash to hand Celeste a brand new phone he had purchased himself so the two of them could keep communicating without her parents knowing. Law enforcement had told him she was 13. Her parents had cut off her access. And his response was to pay a child to smuggle a phone past her family. She was reported missing again in April 2024. By late 2024 and into early 2025, the Digital Trail investigators later recovered tells a deeply troubling story. Messages between Burke and Celeste pulled from his iCloud account referenced pregnancy, emergency contraception, and conversations about abortion. And here is a detail that only recently emerged. Celeste's official death certificate was updated. The section on pregnancy, which previously read no, was quietly changed to unknown. Meaning investigators cannot rule out that Celeste may have been pregnant at the time of her death. Legal experts say if confirmed, that finding could result in an additional charge. But the message that cuts through everything came in March 2025. About 1 month before she allegedly died. Celeste sent Burke a text telling him that all they ever did was have a physical relationship. She told him she wanted more than that for herself. A 14-year-old girl telling a grown man she deserved better. She was right. But prosecutors say something else was happening simultaneously. Burke had allegedly been seeing other women. Celeste knew. She was furious because he had led her to believe they had a real future together. So by the night of April the 22nd, 2025, the night before she allegedly died, the two of them were locked in a lengthy heated argument over text. She was hurt. She was done being strung along. And then she said something prosecutors say changed everything. She threatened him. She told him she was going to expose everything. Go public. Tell the world about their relationship, about everything that had allegedly happened since she was 13. She said she would end his career and destroy his life. His album was dropping in 48 hours. His world tour was booked. His Fortnite deal was active. Millions of dollars on the line. And the person holding the match was a 14-year-old girl who had finally decided she was done being silent. That is the moment prosecutors say everything changed. April the 23rd, 2025. 8:40 in the evening. David Burke opened his Uber app and ordered a car. Not for himself. For Celeste. Pick up from her home in Lake Elsinore. Destination, his Hollywood Hills rental house. More than 80 miles away. She got in. They texted during the entire ride back and forth the whole way. She had no reason to think anything was wrong. She was going to see someone she had known for years. Someone she trusted. The Uber dropped her off at approximately 10:10 in the evening. That was the last time Celeste Rivas Hernandez was seen alive. 20 minutes later, at approximately 10:30, Burke allegedly sent text messages to her phone. "Where are you? Are you here?" Prosecutors say those messages were not confusion. They were calculation. Sent to create a digital record suggesting he had no idea what had happened to her. She was already gone by the time he typed them. The autopsy report, sealed for months and only unsealed in April 2026, confirmed how she died. Multiple penetrating wounds to the torso. One passed through her liver. Another fractured her ribs. The medical examiner documented evidence of a violent struggle. She was 14 years old and she was alone in someone else's home with no way out. He did not call for help. He did not get her to a hospital. He did nothing. At approximately 11:30 that same night, he got into his Tesla and drove north on the 101 freeway toward a remote area off State Route 154 near Lake Kashuma in Santa Barbara County, roughly 110 miles away. Prosecutors believe he drove there in the middle of the night to begin disposing of her belongings, items that could connect him to her. He drove back in the early hours of April the 24th. And then he went to a radio interview. He sat in a radio station chair and talked about his music, his album, his future. Less than 12 hours after prosecutors say he took the life of a 14-year-old girl, he went and did a promotional interview like nothing in the world had happened. That same day, he sent 2 more texts to Celeste's phone asking where she was. No response. There never would be again. After April the 26th, investigators note he stopped texting her completely. Never tried to contact her again. Think about that. If someone you had spent years with suddenly vanished without a word, you would be desperate. You would call everyone. You would go to the police. Unless you already knew exactly why they were not responding. Now comes the evidence trail that prosecutors say is almost impossible to explain away. In the days and weeks after April the 23rd, deliveries began arriving at Burke's Hollywood Hills home. April the 24th, one day after Celeste allegedly died, a shovel arrived, ordered through Postmates from Home Depot. May the 1st, 2 chainsaws arrived from Amazon. May the 5th, a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable kiddie pool arrived from Amazon. July the 7th, a burn cage arrived. Every single Amazon order was placed under a fake name. Victoria Mendez. That name does not belong to anyone connected to Burke's public life. But every package, the chainsaws, the body bag, the pool, the burn cage, was addressed to Victoria Mendez and delivered to his address. Prosecutors say Burke placed that inflatable pool on the floor of his garage. He put Celeste's body into it. And then he used the chainsaws. He worked inside that garage to separate her remains and make identification as difficult as possible. When Lapt executed a search warrant at the Hollywood Hills house, investigators documented what they found. Blood confirmed by DNA testing to match Celeste's unique genetic profile. The inflatable pool was still there. It had multiple long straight cuts through the plastic, linear cuts consistent with saw use going directly through the material. And then the forensic detail that ties everything together. Tiny blue plastic fragments were recovered from inside Celeste's remains. Small pieces embedded in her tissue. LAPD's Forensic Science Division ran a physical fit analysis. Those fragments matched directly to the specific blue inflatable pool purchased under the name Victoria Mendez and delivered to Burke's home. The pool in his garage matched the fragments found in her body. There is no innocent explanation for that. Celeste had a tattoo on her ring finger. His name. Prosecutors say Burke removed that finger and the one beside it on her left hand specifically to eliminate the tattoo that connected her to him. Those two fingers have never been recovered. Her remains were placed into the body bag and the laundry bags and loaded into the front trunk of his Tesla Model X. And then he went on with his life. He returned to Santa Barbara County on May the 8th, late at night. Again on May the 31st. The same remote stretch of State Route 154 near Lake Kashuma each time. Investigators believe those trips were made to dispose of additional evidence. Meanwhile, people around him kept noticing a smell they could not ignore. He told them it was a dead animal somewhere. He told them not to worry. By late July 2025, he had been driving with Celeste's remains in that trunk for roughly 3 months. On July the 29th, surveillance cameras captured him parking the Tesla on a street just 400 feet from his house. He left for his wee tour. North America. Europe. He performed on stages in front of crowds of fans who had no idea. The Tesla sat on that street. Day after day. Not moving. A neighbor eventually called to have it towed. On September the 8th, 2025, one day after what would have been Celeste's 15th birthday, a manager at the tow yard walked toward the Tesla and immediately knew something was wrong. The smell hit them before they reached the car. Flies were swarming the front trunk. Lapt was called. They secured a warrant and opened it. Inside was a black body bag. Inside the bag was a severely decomposed human head and torso. Beneath the body bag was a plastic garbage bag containing dismembered arms and legs. The ring finger and pinky finger on the left hand were missing. On September the 16th, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner used dental records to make a positive identification. It was Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She had been in that trunk since April. The arrest did not come right away. And that wait was agonizing for everyone following this case. After Celeste was identified, investigators launched one of the most extensive investigations in recent Los Angeles history. Approximately 54 to 55 search warrants were filed. They went to Apple for his iCloud account, reportedly containing over 10 terabytes of data. They subpoenaed Google, Meta, Instagram, and Facebook. They pulled records from his booking agents, management team, Uber, Amazon, Postmates, Tesla vehicle data, and cell tower mapping. In October 2025, Burke quietly retained Blair Burke, one of the most prominent criminal defense attorneys in the country, a Harvard Law graduate whose past clients include some of the most high-profile names in entertainment history. That kind of legal representation signals clearly that Burke understood exactly how serious his exposure was. In November 2025, Lapt held a press conference and for the first time publicly described the case as a murder investigation. Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton stood at that podium and said accountability is coming. A secret grand jury was convened. Multiple sessions. But no indictment came down. Investigators kept building. On April the 16th, 2026, nearly 1 year to the day after Celeste was last seen alive, LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division arrested David Anthony Burke at a property on Marmorn Avenue in Los Angeles. Held without bail. On April the 20th, he appeared before Superior Court Judge Charlene F. Walmo. The charges were read aloud. First-degree murder with special circumstances. Lying in wait. Murder for financial gain. Murder of a witness. Continuous lewd and lascivious acts upon a child under the age of 14. Unlawful mutilation of human remains. Special circumstances in California means one thing. If convicted, David Burke faces either life in prison without the possibility of parole, or the death penalty. Prosecutors have not yet publicly confirmed whether they will seek death. His attorney told the court the actual evidence would show Burke did not murder Celeste and was not the cause of her death. The defense called for a speedy preliminary hearing, then turned around and said they needed more time to review the evidence. Private investigator Steve Fieser, working the case since the beginning, said publicly the call for speed was a bluff and that the effort to keep details from the public had already begun. And there is one more thing. In January 2026, a state highway worker doing routine maintenance along State Route 154 in Santa Barbara County, the same remote stretch Burke allegedly visited 3 times in the dark, found something discarded on the side of the road. Celeste's United States passport card. After the arrest, Fortnite announced full refunds for anyone who had purchased D4VD related in-game content. Universal Music Group moved to remove his collaborative tracks from streaming platforms. His tour was gone. His label said nothing. His career frozen completely. The song that made him famous still carries hundreds of millions of streams attached to a title that now reads like something else entirely. Romantic homicide. Her family has sat through every hearing, every delay, every new detail entering the public record. They have watched all of it with a patience and dignity that is almost unbearable to witness. And through everything their message has never changed. All we want is justice for Celeste. Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez was born on September 7, 2010. She loved to sing. She loved to dance. She told her parents she loved them right up until she could not anymore. She sent a text to the man prosecutors say ended her life telling him she deserved more than what he was giving her. She was right. She deserved everything. The preliminary hearing is set for May 26, 2026. That is where a judge will determine whether the evidence built across 54 search warrants, months of forensic analysis, and terabytes of digital data is sufficient to send this case to trial. Prosecutors say they have the digital trail, the purchase records, the location data, the surveillance footage, the DNA match, and the forensic evidence. The defense says the actual evidence tells a different story. David Anthony Burke has pleaded not guilty to all charges and is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. In loving memory of Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez. September 7th, 2010 to April 23rd, 2025. The preliminary hearing is days away. And what prosecutors are expected to lay out inside that courtroom, the full forensic sequence, the complete digital record, and the specific evidence that investigators have described as the most damaging detail in this entire case, has not yet been revealed publicly. When that hearing begins, this channel will be there for every single moment. The next video covers exactly what is expected inside that courtroom. There is one piece of evidence that legal experts say could change everything about how this case ends. You cannot afford to miss that one.